Hello, everyone. Welcome to our Oops Origami live stream for, what was it, March 6th, 2022. Uh, with us today, we have Benno that created that excellent MSP onboarding checklist. Well, actually, it's more of a generalized IT checklist that
Mhm.
we've talked about a couple of times now. So we're excited to have him on and talk about this.
Yeah,
Oh,
thanks for
who
having me
wants to
on, Brian.
introduce themselves next? Benno, you're the guest. You introduce yourself.
Yeah, hi. I guess I'm Benno. I'm a aspiring software developer and used to be a IT guy. So I've been in the IT and MSP space for the better part of 15 years, and kind of took the plunge into pursuing a software project this past year. So that was kind of my COVID cocoon project, and so hopefully butterfly emerges. But so I guess Brian and the rest of the crew here kind of found me on Reddit after I blogged about a an IT discovery checklist. So we can talk more about that.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. Chris
Um,
or
uh,
Catherine or whoever wants to go.
Catherine, go ahead.
Hi, I'm Catherine. I know I've introduced myself before, but I work in basically micro small business land. I also help with retail customers, so I'm the person that's helping your grandma when she gets scammed on the internet by fake Microsoft.
Absolutely. I'll go next. I'm Chris. Uh, I have been done various forms of IT for 25 years. A good chunk of it doing MSP or MSP like things. So I'm the that checklist was uh, a pleasure to read. I was like, hey, yeah, I totally should ask that question like early in my career, and hope to have remembered it later in my career. Um, but yeah, exciting stuff.
So I'll real quick, since uh, there may or may not be new viewers. I'm Brian. I've been doing network and security stuff and occasionally system stuff for, I don't know, a little over 20 years. Currently work for an MSSP, basically doing consulting work and some stuff that would probably be like contractor kind of stuff. So yeah.
Nice to
So
meet you.
oh yes, nice to meet you. Catherine is my wife. We're both in IT, so that's fun. So Benno, what inspired you to? You said that this was kind of your COVID project, and it makes sense to go with what you know is, hey, figure out what software I can build to support that, and if this checklist is very useful. It's something that I've thought about several times and have wanted to create. And I've actually created smaller versions, not nearly as comprehensive, but
Mhm.
for the company that Catherine works for, is just coming up with a list of things that I think that they should ask. But it was very network centric because that's my
Your
prime
space.
focus. Yeah, network and security. And especially most of the security stuff is way beyond the scope that any small business would ever need, especially any home user. So I don't know that what made you decide to go with this as the project and ma- decide to make this checklist?
Yeah. So the checklist kind of lives parallel to my project, if you will. It's not really the core focus of my project. But to kind of dive into the checklist, so the intent there was to give MSPs in particular a good starting point for what all they need to sniff out to get to know a customer. So it's definitely meant as a cursory introductory, how to get this customer to be supportable type discovery, and to liberally make use of the delete key. So obviously the thing is like 10 pages long. So, I kind of meant for people to go in there and yank out what they don't need and hopefully have some inspiration for their own aha moments. And I'm sure you guys have had those as well. Like, oh, well, like there's this one piece that I just thought of that really you should also ask or should also go with. And I'd actually love to hear those later as well. Yeah. And then as far as my actual COVID project, so my last job, I was a automation engineer. I worked for Iconic IT. I guess they're pretty huge in the U.S. And I was doing their automation, and running up to that, I was in charge of onboarding and tooling and that type of thing. And I could see a lot of room for improvement there in terms of the onboarding processes, and I found myself doing a lot of manual auditing mainly. Like that was a big time suck. And so I saw a big opportunity there to streamline just the onboarding and discovery process in general, just because it tends to be very lengthy, and there's just so much ground to cover that it really does help if you are at least walked through each area. And then process-wise, same thing for the customer. Customers kind of need to be guided along this initial launch of this journey.
Yeah,
Right.
you can't walk into a new customer and say, "Hey, tell me everything I need to know." There's
No.
you're not going to get you couldn't even print this list out and hand it to a customer and say, "Fill this in." There's no
No.
way. This is a guided discussion, and like you said, you take the parts that make sense to your business and what you're providing, and discard the rest. But even the rest, I mean, even if it's not something that's you're actually going to be doing for them, sometimes it's nice to collect this information. There may be something else that you need to know about that you normally wouldn't ask about. Well, maybe give the whole list a cursory glance.
Mm-hmm.
That
Right.
absolutely makes sense.
Yeah. When I was looking at it, I was thinking to myself, like, look, this is a great checklist for, onboarding a new customer, but this is a great checklist for business owners to go through and understand, do I really have control of my IT, right? Like, you should, if you own a business, you should have this information at hand. You may not have it in depth, but like, it's a good gut check for you. Like, what happens tomorrow if I have a problem? Do I have the information I need to either enable my vendor or enable my staff to go through and solve the problems that we're going to have? So I thought it was good.
That's a really good point. I mean, you see a lot of I've talked to CEOs and business owners, and that is a major concern of theirs, is making sure that the new IT people do actually have what they need. And that is actually a pretty common issue in the industry, where business owners get bit because either documentation didn't exist or it gets held hostage. So yeah, it is. You're spot on, Chris.
Yeah. I mean, I will tell you, the number of times I went into a new customer, and it was at best challenging to get the information from the old vendor, right? And at worst, just flat out impossible, because they were holding it hostage. In some cases, it was just they didn't have it, right? Like, when you're hiring a vendor, you'd like to think as a small business owner, like, oh yeah, they're documenting everything. Again, this is a great checklist for a business owner. Like, have a gut check, call your current vendor, and they may be great, right? But double check, trust but verify. And at the same time, like, it's been tempting as an MSP to, like, hey, we did all this work. Did you actually pay us for all these hours? I don't know.
Yeah, in a way, like, it's free labor in a way. Like, it only makes sense to do that if you retain the customer. And as soon as you lose the customer, it ceases to have any value. And
right.
yeah, I guess, and asking is a great prompt, right? Like, if the other outgoing IT guy might have forgotten to document something, maybe they didn't get around to it. Maybe they still have documentation from the last IT guy, like you're the third in line, and they just haven't they're giving you their documentation, sure, but have they given you the previous IT companies
Did they
documentation
ever
as well?
collect it? Yeah.
Right, right.
Well, and so one of my longest running customers uh, also acquires another company at least once or twice a year. This is something that they should be using as well, because most of this, as far as my relationship with that customer, almost none of this has any bearing. This would be really good for them, though. For okay, we acquired this company. What do they have? What do we need to bring into our environment? It's the same list. I mean, may as well take advantage of it.
Yeah. I mean, I've been through at least uh, two mergers, being the purchased company as opposed to the purchaser, and um, watch that process occur uh, at varying levels of success. Right, like it's a good point. You do need to know these things if you're going to engage with IT infrastructure appropriately in any environment. That it's a good checklist. I got a question for you. How long did it take you to develop this? Like, how long have you been stewing on this before you put it down?
So honestly, the answer kind of might shock you. I literally pumped out that checklist over 2 days, like two sittings. But the truth is that that was everything that came to mind for us thinking from experience. Like I basically rewinded to every single client that I've encountered and thought, okay, what did they have? What did I need to know? What were some of the major issues, and what did I need to know for that?
Yeah.
And I kind of
So it
worked
took you
backwards
15
from
years plus 2 days.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly. Right. The writing it down part wasn't the issue. It was the everything else that led up to that, I think, is what it takes. And yeah, my sense is that's probably why people kind of respond positively to this. Is if you're new, this also gives people kind of a roadmap for what do they need to learn potentially, right? Because if you're a new IT guy stepping into the role, and you see something like, what the heck is this guy talking about, right? Well, what does this even mean? What is this acronym over here? Then that gives people a great place to start learning about it as well.
Yeah, I'd agree.
So you're an automation engineer, mostly writing software automation or automation software, or what kind of systems did you work in?
So, my last role, I was working in ConnectWise Automate, and basically automating the IT operations for the MSP I was working for.
Okay.
So that type of automation. So more the operational IT, automating IT tasks.
Sure.
Security tools was a big piece of that, and
Right.
yeah.
No,
So
that kind of the integration and uh, detoilification, to use the Google word, of IT operations. Yep.
Yeah. And I got my feet wet with some APIs and stuff like that. Integrating with different vendor tools and streamlining things like provisioning and that type of stuff.
Sure.
So yeah, that's my automation background right there. And I guess now I'm going more into the real software world.
Okay.
IT automation is mainly like you're dealing with scripts and stuff like that. And sure, you need to orchestrate a lot of things and store data and retrieve it and all that. But yeah, software development is kind of the major leagues compared to the minor leagues, I'd say.
Right.
So for me, it is definitely a step up in terms of difficulty and challenge. And that's mainly why I was really drawn to it. Part of the thing that comes with being in that role is you're kind of the quarterback for the MSP, and and that was a relatively large MSP. I think we had over 150 people whenever I decided to leave, and but that does mean that there's a lot of people coming to you, and you're kind of seen as like the expert on a lot of things, and that does get old, especially if you're interested in learning. That's a very stagnant place to be in a way, and
Get
so
pigeonholed into one role or one site.
oh yeah,
Repetitive.
that too, totally. Like you get too good at one thing, and you're not allowed to do anything else anymore.
Right. Well,
Even though you might enjoy that.
Yeah,
being the
that would
expert.
drive all of us crazy.
Yeah. I mean, you're talking to two like dyed in the wool infrastructure guys. Like Brian also has, 25-ish years in the field. So for us, you say, oh, software, it's the big leagues. We're like, well, sorta. But no, it's definitely a different world. I've been doing more and more software development like activities. And I'm like, man, whole new skill set to learn, right? Like the stuff you learn and perfect being in operations and infrastructure. Um, it's a completely different skill set for developers.
Yep.
And an interesting one. Like I will give full credit. It's a very interesting field. So
Well, almost every job role in IT is going to have some little smidgen of developer kind of mindset that they're going to need, because everything is going to be automated to some extent at some point. If you're doing it more than a couple of times, you should be automating that process. Even if this is something as simple as having a spreadsheet that like generates scripts for you to, or not really scripts, but commands to copy paste into a switch or router, or right. Notepad and effective use of find and replace. These are little things that will allow you to do your job more effectively. And once you do that groundwork of figuring out what you need to do, I mean, bringing that into a tool to actually automate those tasks is kind of easy. It's the logic beforehand that can be more difficult.
Well, like with the growth of platform and software as a service solutions, like there's a ton of offerings out there right now that like infrastructure offerings that do not have a command line. Absolutely.
That is absolutely true. You know what? But you take 2 hours to automate a 10-minute task, and then nobody has to do that 10-minute task manually anymore. And the lessons you learn automating that 10-minute task, it's stuff, all those stupid little things that you have to Google to automate your first 10-minute task. That's all stuff that you can reuse. Hell, even that code you may be able to reuse. Hey, maybe you have to learn Python to learn how to automate that. So now that 2 hours turns into 2 weeks because I had to learn Python for 2 weeks so that I could spend 2 hours writing a script to automate my 10-minute task. But now I'm building a tool chain in my head to do all these things.
Right. I mean, my watchword has always been, if I'm doing something for the second time in a year, I'm going to start working on the automation because.
Oh, you just dropped out. Nope.
Well, still not. We'll let you know.
Yep. He's probably going to rejoin. Yeah, and I'm the same way. I'll do something manually a couple of times, or if it's something that's complex enough where I know everything has to be identical, even like, I mean, I'm a big firewall guy, Palo Alto guy. If it's something where I'm going to need to click the same check boxes half a dozen times on half a dozen different firewalls, oh no, from the very beginning, I'm going to walk through that once, figure out how to do that from the CLI so that I can just copy and paste this half a dozen times. Even though like Palos are more from the GUI than traditional firewalls were, you know what? It's still more efficient. If it's something that's multiple steps or many steps, you know what? It's way more repeatable to do it that way. Maybe I won't go full blow and automate it, but just to be able to copy and paste what I need to do instead of having to remember or have open side by side the two different sets of checkboxes and entries and all that. You know what? That's error prone. People make mistakes. Let's cut that out of the works and make that as efficient as possible. Welcome back. Still no audio. Switch to your headset. Oh, switch to your headset. Or whatever you were on before. The bad audio.
Yeah, that was pretty bizarre. It just cut out mid-sentence, like USB malfunction, something. I don't know. Oh
It's
man,
that
gotta
brand
love,
new
gotta love
computer.
technology. Yeah, I just gotta power it off and power it back on again. It's a classic fix.
Well, Catherine, tell us about automation you do at your work or want to do at your work.
So every time that my boss gives me a task to automate something, it pretty much means I'm not going to do anything but be frustrated. That part of my brain does not work. It doesn't matter. I can find stuff to copy and paste and it just does not work for me. There are
Someday
some
you'll sit
tasks.
down and learn you some PowerShell.
Yeah, probably need to learn me some PowerShell. There are tasks that I would like to automate, but I'm wondering if sometimes they have to be done at different times or repeatedly, if that's still going to work as far as automation goes. I think about my tune up checklist that I can pretty much do from memory, but sometimes I have to do it in whatever order works and not just that order. So,
That gets difficult when you might have to run things out of order to be able to
mhm,
get things to work.
mhm,
That's maybe not the best target for automation, but if you can get pretty solid with good, if you can catch errors that will tell that programmatically you can tell it where to go from there, you might be able to do it, or at least have it so that you can. Well, I'll kick off this script or whatever that does all the tasks to do a cleanup. If it doesn't work, at least it will have a good log and tell me where it failed, and I can just do it manually for there, or maybe it'll succeed, and that'll save you a whole bunch of time doing that cleanup.
I kind of don't want to let go of some of that though. Like that's my meat and potatoes. Like I don't know what would happen if I automated that away. Like
Well,
I mean,
if it could be automated and that it worked, um I would have a lot of extra time possibly to do nothing.
to do more
Maybe
work.
learn more work, learn how to PowerShell, something like
Well,
that.
yeah.
I mean, it is a compounding thing, right? Like you first you spend the heavy investment of time and learning and building up that automation or whatever, and then you get to benefit over time, and then a year from now, then you might now have a ton of free time available that you can now invest in different skill sets that you want to brush up on, or maybe you want to do something else entirely. Maybe you want to chit chat with your customer for longer, right? And
Mhm.
maybe build up a better relationship or whatever. And your task takes much less time. Or you could take it to your boss and say like, hey, look, this really works well. I've built this up. Let's get this as a standard operating procedure for the whole company.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And at that point, you got a massive bargaining chip for a huge raise as well.
Ugh.
So and and take note, guys. Like if you're going to the best way to get a raise is by going to your employer and say, hey, I made you so much money. I just want a tiny little cut of it.
Well, yeah, you make yourself more valuable, more efficient.
We're so small though right now. Like sometimes I'm just happy that like I get a paycheck.
Ray, 100%. So you're spending more time on like active, useful tasks versus stuff that, if it can be automated, this is brain dead work. It's not stuff that you're like actively thinking about and working on. Let well, and it's something that other people, because doesn't Giles always say that he needs a dozen of you? Well, this way he could at least have a couple of you, because other people would be able to run that automation to do that PC cleanup or whatever, and at least most of the time it would work. How much time would that free up for you to work on other things that are more important?
Right.
Oh,
I
if
mean,
you
if
get
you
really
took,
fancy, oh, there we go, audio, yay!
hey,
Yay.
if you took your top 10 tasks, right, and picked one of them to work on automation, it would make your life easier. And yeah, it's a challenge. I remember diving into my first batch of automation, and I will be honest, working like storefront IT sometimes is really hard to find a way to automate that stuff because every grandma's computer is different, right? Like,
Standard. So it's not like working for an enterprise where this is everyone's, this is their image, this is where everything gets saved. It's like, well, this computer's been updated through 3 different operating systems and they've been saving stuff on the C drive for 10 years and somehow not in the user profile, and it just totally gets away, to the point where I have to be a detective to find people's stuff.
right. I mean, I will use that as a shameless plug for those of you out there in the industry because I've suffered through that same frustration, Katie. Strongly encourage your users to put things in a standard location. There's a reason that Microsoft invented the Documents folder in Windows. It's not because they want it easier for you. It's because they wanted it for easier for people like Katie and I.
I mean, yes, the documents folder and the pictures folder is helpful, but when we've upgraded something from 7 and they have the documents and setting folder and then they move to 10, all of a sudden there's stuff everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Absolutely.
I mean, yeah, there isn't a standard, and it's definitely, I think that I'm going to be less able to automate as much as maybe someone else in a different part of IT. But there's definitely times where we could definitely use something that's automated that works every time.
Yeah, in a standardized environment, you'd have a lot more opportunities to automate than you
Sure.
may. But there are things you could.
Mm-hmm.
And there's other things to automate beyond just those actual, like, doing things on a PC. There's business processes, like the app that Benno was writing.
Yes.
So
Right.
tell us about the app and how that works into the checklist.
Yeah, sure. We can go there. So
I mean, if you
oddly
want
enough,
to.
oh sure, absolutely, I do. Why would I not? So the app actually is not looking to automate, the vast majority of the process. Like, mainly, the idea behind the onboarding app is that during onboarding, you kind of need to have this synergy of customer input, right? And IT guy learning the environment and some centralized place to organize all of this and stage, incoming information and have a single place to go look to find out where things are at. Most MSPs are like this hodgepodge of a bunch of different systems. And if your job gets made super difficult because you have to check 3 different consoles to figure out if this is done or not, that's a huge pain, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so the premise here is let's create a place where you can store, or first of all, you can organize what your process is and share out information to different people that need to participate, draw them into the process, store all this information in one place, at least temporarily, so you can make sense of it all and get through the initial phase of onboarding. And there's a bunch of like little stops along that bus route, right? Where, there are specific tasks that can be automated, such as maybe you need to figure out, I have 10 machines and I have 8 users. Which 2 users am I missing? Stuff like that can be automated away in an app. And I'll for sure, I'll get the big ones and knock those out.
Yeah, those integrations is the important part. When you can go through that, say you have a tablet or even a laptop, and you're sitting down in front of the customer and collecting this information, instead of that information just being in WordPad or something, you're actually collecting it in a way that's actually doing things on the back end. That could be tremendously useful.
Yep.
Well, and like having lived that MSP life, like the way that different field folks on board can be wildly different, even in the same company.
Yep.
And
Oh yeah.
like the questions they ask can vary from person to person, from
Or
day to
don't
day,
ask.
right? Or
Mhm.
don't ask. So like having that framework around a process, I hope that people are smart enough to like buy onto your software, right?
I mean,
Yeah,
I
I
already
mean-
think it would be useful for us. It would make us look super sharp too to have a little tablet, and I'm all like, oh hey, I have all this stuff. Export. I'm gonna export it into a proposal and done.
Right.
Yeah, yeah. Now I'm not gonna promise you the moon and pink skies and butterflies and stuff.
Well, clearly you're not a proper developer yet, then.
No, no. I mean, I'm not gonna lie. I'm not a perfect like salesperson. Like that part doesn't come natural to me. But I do get a sense of satisfaction and gratification if things just work right. Like things are connected. Like back when I was growing up, you'd have these little tracks where you put these marbles in, and they'd go all over the place. That just ticks a box somewhere in my brain, and just to create that's kind of my idea, and to really listen to people and what their struggles are and solve those. That just makes me happy, and so. Yeah, there was actually a huge outreach of people that that signed up to pre-registered for my app. After that post went up on Reddit, and
good,
so
good.
I'll definitely be talking to those people for inspiration and touch base to figure out what can this app be, and am I on the right track? That's going to be a super important thing that I'll repeatedly go back out and ascertain. Because that's honestly very difficult. Like you can have the best idea, but the way that you execute that is highly subjective, and your first idea is probably not the right one. So you're gonna have to figure out what's right, what's wrong, and pull people in. So yeah, kind of rambling here, but
No, that's good. Yeah, I looked at your website, and I think you are on the right track. I'm going to ask the worst question you can ever ask a developer. So when do you think you're going to have it out?
I'm not telling.
Great.
That's good. Because then it's
Sometime in
not
the next
late.
5 years, right?
Oh yeah, for sure. So my goal is to have something out this year. But yeah, the problem is I'm fighting the laws of complexity, right? And entropy in the universe. And so if something can go wrong, it will. And I don't want to ruin something good by scaring some people away too fast or something like that. So I'm definitely going to pace myself and try to make the right thing first, and then get it in the hands of the right people, and work with people iteratively and in small, a focused approach. So honestly, it's a creative process. After you've done it once, for the second onboarding app, I'll tell you exactly how long it will take. For the first one, God knows.
Right.
I never like to give an ETA of when something will be done, because then I will miss it. People ask how long it will take. I say, I'll let you know when it's done.
Scotty School of Engineering.
After I get really sick of being bad at estimating. So
yeah, just stop doing it. Tell them you'll tell them when it's ready.
The problem is when you're going to give a proposal to a potential customer, right? Like you have to have done some estimation, and if your estimate is wildly wrong, that's a problem.
Your
So
estimate is going to be in a vacuum. So that's
right,
like
right.
nothing else could possibly ever go wrong. This is how long it should take ideally. I mean, you can say that.
So what I ended up doing was I'd try to get pretty detailed, right? Like I go, okay, building new server, transferring files, awesome. Let's break that down to the nitty gritty. I'd try to get that down to like chunks of time that I could reasonably quantify as under 5 hours. And sometimes I'd have like 200 chunks, right? So I'd total all those up and then I'd add 20%. And then I'd add 50% on top of that. And usually what ended up happening is I was about dead on because I was really bad at estimating, right? Like, oh, I'm totally going to get this done in 2 hours. No, it's going to take me 6, right? And there are some places where you win, like, oh, this is going to take me like 10 hours. Got it done in 30 minutes. Like, you don't know, right? You're going to hit
Under
those
promise, over
bumps.
deliver makes
Right.
everybody happy.
Right.
Yes.
And I wholeheartedly agree. Like estimating is super hard, especially the more creative the process. But one little trick that I've learned in the past, being asked to deliver on wildly ambitious projects or things that just take insane amounts of time, that cannot be estimated, basically, is if you ask your customer, how much time do you want me to spend on it? Like basically allow them to constrain your timeline, and then you can draw your own, you can constrain your proposition and say, all right, this is what you can do in that time. Now, it's kind of a bit of a minefield in a way, because the customer is going to have their expectation of how long this is going to take, no matter what you say, if you give an answer or not. So even if there is no timeline, that's not true. They have some idea, and you have to get that number out of them, and you have to tell them this is what I think is possible in that amount of time. Give or take, plus or minus, like Chris said, 70%.
Right. Well, and scope creep is real, right?
Well,
you can get hobbled just by access, right? Like, hey, we want you to, install a new server, but we would like you to do it between the hours of 6:30 a.m. and 7 a.m. You think you can get that done in a couple of weeks? Like, no, I cannot like transfer all of your data in tiny little half-hour chunks over the course of 2 weeks. You have 6 terabytes of data, and all I can use is serial cable, right? Like, it's not happening.
No, I like that question that, well, how long would you like me to spend on it? More because I would be curious just to hear what people have to say, because I'm talking about retail, people that need my help that obviously don't have any IT background or they wouldn't be coming to me. Curious what they think it should take for me to do something.
It's
well,
you'd be shocked, right?
Yeah, and a very closely coupled question and subsequently answer is, how much is this going to cost?
Oh yeah, that one also totally burns me.
I mean, you'll get a phone call and
my computer is slow. How long will this take to fix, and what will it cost?
I don't know. I need to see it first.
I mean, the pithy part of me is like, cost of new computer, right?
Yeah.
Like,
yeah, somewhere less
that is
than
the
the
max.
cost of a new
That
computer.
is the max cost.
Right.
The minimum is approximately 0. And that's the same for time estimates. The minimum is approximately 0. The maximum is how much you got. I mean,
Exactly.
Yeah, I mean, there is that you can effectively ask the question, like, well, how much do you have to spend, without asking that particular question. And
some people
sometimes
just come out with budgets, like, this is what I have. Can you do that? And I can say, sure, yes or no. That's easy. But most people don't do that. Yes, Rick. It will be down till it's up.
Yeah, I've given that answer before. When will this be fixed? Well, you'll know it.
I mean, I've given the answer sooner if you stop bugging me.
Yes.
I haven't said that to anybody, but it's definitely been muttered under my breath off the phone.
Yeah.
I don't know. You call me every hour and ask me how I'm doing. Stop calling. It'll decrease the time.
I've
Yeah,
given
that's
C-levels
spicy.
that answer on more than one occasion.
Yeah, and honestly, like a great strategy there. Also, like if you're in some kind of security emergency, is have a designated point person that's going to handle the communications, right?
Yeah.
Because you
Oh, yeah.
cannot have a field engineer, frontline emergency worker
No.
taking the 911 calls. Just doesn't work. So delegating that, splitting those two off is a great strategy.
We just in the last year actually hired an office assistant, and her main job is to gatekeep for me. So I'm not in real time having to interact with everybody and anybody that has a question. Like, you can tell them I'm working on it, or you can tell them I'm available after this time, but just to get me out of the mix. Because when I worked alone, so now you want to know how long it's going to take, and I'm also running a retail store.
Right.
Yeah. And you're catching phone calls of people asking you how long it's going to take. Longer every time you call. That's what the answer is.
That's
Every
that's
Yeah.
when the
every
office
minute I spend on the
assistant,
phone with you is a minute I'm not working on your computer.
an office assistant, and an automated call tree has saved me a lot of time.
There you go. Automation. Right there. Automated call tree.
Yeah.
Although some people just skip all of the options and just want to talk to you and ask stuff that's in the call tree, but I guess at least I don't
Yeah.
have spammers calling me anymore.
I mean, the reality is we've all been trained by awful call trees like AT&T or,
Just mash 0 until someone talks to you or something.
right, like nothing they're going to do is going to be helpful to you. Like, "Oh, would you like to pay your bill?" Like, you know what? Sometimes I would like to. But your automated system's going to be really bad at taking my credit card anyway, so I'm going to end up talking to a person. Or like, "Would you like to hear about new products?" No, because I don't trust your current one enough. Like,
Nope.
let me talk to a human. Um,
Mhm.
on
Mhm.
the other hand, I've totally taken advantage of call trees and be like, "Oh, I'm glad I don't have to talk to a person about this.
Yeah.
I just want to know if your system is down."
Yeah.
So are those the phone
Oh yeah.
calls that I've heard about for Rick?
Mm. Yeah, I've sat on those as well. Yeah, those suck. When you have something down and you have a mass phone call with 50 people on it, some of them are C-level people. That's not useful.
just
That is
waiting
not a
for
useful phone call to
just
have.
waiting until it's fixed. Is it done
Like
yet? Is it done yet?
that's basically what they devolve into. No, I'm gonna hang up now, or at least put myself on mute. I'll let you know when some progress has been made.
And that's where it's important to have, like to Benno's point, that middle layer, like particularly when you're talking about large organizations or bigger impact emergencies, to
Mhm.
have that person that can like talk to higher levels on a regular basis, make them feel like they're being heard, and give them information, but at the same time, um, can take the burden of communication off of the people that are actually working the problem. Um,
Mhm.
Yeah.
if all you have to do is give a a brief 30-second or 1-minute synopsis of what you've done in the last 30 to 60 minutes to someone that's already technical, then they can take that and like translate it into non-technical speak for executives.
Hi, Rick.
Hi, Rick.
Hi,
Hi
guys. Can
there.
you hear me okay?
Oh yeah.
Yes.
Oh, excellent. Yeah, I had to jump in there because the conversation kind of morphed into some stuff that I have a lot of opinions on. And one of them are these crazy calls
All right.
where,
Before you go, Rick,
yes.
introduce yourself, please.
Hi, I'm Rick. I'm an old guy, and I've been in the IT world for about 30 years. So I work for a small enterprise, a fledgling enterprise. They're trying to get big, but they can't really get out of their own way. So that's who I'm at. I'm kind of a network guy. I'm learning to be a network guy after many, many, many years of being a systems guy. So that's where I'm at there. But yeah, to get back to my point, it's we wind up with people that there can be 15, 20, 25 people on a phone call. And well, what about this? What about that? Did you look at this? Did you look at that? And I'm like, you know what? Let technical people do what we do, and you need to get off the phone. And I've said, it'll be down till it's up. And it's, if it'll be in, like you, Katie, the more you ask me, the longer it's going to take. I've had those conversations many, many times. So, but I'm not afraid to get shot in the face either. So there's that.
It happens.
I mean, Rick, you mentioned an interesting phenomenon, which is management offering technical help, right? Like it happens often too frequently where somebody higher up will offer you a suggestion for how to solve the problem. And it's like, hey, have you done this? And you can, just from the question, frequently you can find like, yep, you found Google. Congratulations. I can Google things too.
That is very, very true.
An executive learned a new word today, and they want to use it out on you.
Right.
A mutual acquaintance used to call that the seat pocket mentality of learning IT. When the executive was in the plane and they pulled out SkyMall and opened up the book and, there's an article about how to do cloud or whatever.
Oh,
so,
God.
Yes.
Actually,
being Google smart.
Right. Yeah, and trying to explain to management or executives like, hey, the reason I haven't looked at that yet is because I already I dispensed with that idea through my 20 years of experience tells me that that's not the path I want to go down right now. But Rick, you bring up an interesting thing, cloud. Benno, what's your opinion on cloud? Particularly for MSP customers.
I could already see that his eyebrows popped up, and he has an opinion. It's probably a good.
I mean, the truth is it depends, right? There's no one size fits all for cloud solutions. I think MSPs kind of have their work cut out for them to figure out when is cloud right and when is cloud wrong, just not appropriate for that customer or their use case. I am a firm believer that in standardizing your workflow and standardizing how you approach specific tools or platforms or whatever. I think the cloud is fantastic for things like user authentication, for example. If you're going to look at secure authentication models, Azure AD basically cannot be beaten. Especially not by an on-premises Active Directory type setup. Just from the point of view of the amount of security researchers that Microsoft has and the amount of data points that they take into consideration whenever they decide whether to challenge your login or not, that type of thing. I mean, I see huge benefit there. Now, where the cloud might struggle is with latency, right? The further you put that server away, and if you have an app that it's latency sensitive, that could get cumbersome real fast. And you kind of quickly get into an all or nothing type situation with the cloud where you either go all in so that you have everything closely together in the cloud and you just look at it with your telescopic lens being the RDP session that or the virtual machine that you're logging into. Yeah, I mean, there's challenges for sure, but I think the cloud is for sure maturing, and it's just important to use all the security options that are there. If you're gonna go to AWS or Azure or something like that, be sure to encrypt your data there. Don't just assume that it's the cloud's problem to secure everything. That's not the case. You're still in charge of the life cycle of your servers and maintaining patch levels and secure configurations. And insecure configurations blow up a lot. Like the blast radius from the cloud is basically worldwide, right? Whereas, if you accidentally oopsie doopsie did something internally in your network, unless you also screwed up at the firewall level, you're good, kind of.
Kind of. Right. No,
Kind
like
of. Yeah.
there's
I don't know
limits
what you're
to the
talking about.
impact.
It's never happened to me.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you make good points. Like for macro services and for services that like it can be really hard to check all the security boxes, particularly if you are a small business. Uh, the one thing I will say is like if you're looking at cloud to run your line of business applications, you're gonna like cost is real, right? And cloud is not necessarily cheaper.
No.
We've beat that drum a lot uh, on this forum, but you know, for productivity applications, like if you're running your own Exchange server and you know on-prem Office applications, just stop.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Like
most SMBs should not. Well, and actually, even larger, you really shouldn't be running Exchange on site anymore. There's not a whole. There's very few benefits to it.
Or a phone system, or
Well, yeah,
Teams, or
it's getting to
SharePoint.
that point too. Yeah,
Yeah.
phone systems,
Right.
SharePoint.
It's,
SharePoint used to suck in a multi-tenant scenario. Now it's not as bad.
it's
I
not so
mean,
bad. No.
Teams.
And Teams is okay. Teams is maturing and getting a lot better. And the cost for that, for an E5 license for like O365 is what, $32 a month per user. And I don't know that with all the overhead and everything you need to manage that kind of environment, $32 a person is not that bad.
Yeah, it's not insignificant, but it's not
No.
that bad either, really.
right.
But not as, Windows data center licensing is not insignificant. Neither is VMware licensing and the
Right.
hardware and all the maintenance and all that stuff to roll that sort of stuff in there. So if you can minimize that footprint, taking those services to the cloud makes a lot of sense. And we as engineers can do things that make sense and do things that actually might provide value to the customer, to our customers and to our companies. So
Right.
Well, the key is knowing what is conducive to running in the cloud and what is not. Beyond productivity stuff, I think that's almost a no-brainer at this point. You almost shouldn't be running it on-prem. But there are definitely workloads you should be running on-prem. And Rick, you have many of them, and they're trying to
we
push
got a
them
lot
in the
of them.
cloud. They
I
make
mean,
no sense whatsoever.
Right, because there's a lot of stuff that we do is if we tried to
How many
we scan
terabytes a day
paper
of data
and we
you
put
go
the
through?
images on
It's-
file servers. If we were to scan that 3 or 4 million pieces of paper every day and tried to pump that up to the cloud, I would need a 10 gig connection to the cloud, and it would just be phenomenally expensive. Not to mention the storage space that we use. So yeah, there's things that we couldn't do. But first, like you say, Brian, like an EDR solution or your AV solution or something like that, all that stuff belongs up in the cloud.
These days,
Any
there's no
multi-factor
reason.
authentication methods, like Benno, you said, that sort of stuff is all cloud. Should all be cloud based. All of it. It should all be Palo Alto and XDR. And
Well, now we're talking about price tag again.
Yeah.
So in
Yeah,
my
don't
world, cloud means less. Usually when we talk cloud with tiny small businesses, it's more along the lines of like backups.
Right.
And I really just
Backup.
related
Yeah,
to
it's all
like
software as a service kind of stuff.
off-site backups makes more sense to a lot of these people because we've had failed hard drives and we've had natural disasters or fires or something. We're storing stuff on site even with good equipment isn't enough. I will say that we do use some cloud software for our business, and that was the first time, like when the invasion happened in Ukraine, that was the first time we have ever had an outage in the 5 years that we've been a business that I was locked out of my ticket system, which meant I just kind of sat there.
That Ukrainian ticket system. You didn't think it was going to be a problem.
It
Well,
wasn't a Ukrainian ticket.
I'm kidding.
It was one of the AWS hiccups.
Right.
The ones that
Mhm.
never showed up on the status page for some reason. I
Feel
don't
like
know
there's
why.
kind of a problem, but not really.
Yeah.
So-
Isn't your phone system cloud-based too, Katie?
Yeah. So
Yeah.
we weren't getting phone calls, and which is fine because I also couldn't give anyone any updates. It was about an hour.
So it was good the phones were down.
Yeah, no, those things need to go down together.
Okay, Benno, I'm going to apologize because every time I join these conversations, we just all kinds of different directions. So I do apologize for derailing this show.
Rick, did you watch it last week? Because
last week was a train wreck.
we had like there was an idea put on the table and somebody whacked it with a hammer and like it went splat, and then that was the show.
We went down to Iowa.
It was Gallagher, but IT.
Oh no. We went down to Iowa, and by the time on our way back, we decided to go to every antique store there on the way. And I don't think I got back in the house until about 8 o'clock or close to it.
How was this getting us back on track?
What's that? I don't even know what he said, but yeah. It's probably, yeah.
Oh man.
I asked how this was getting us back on track.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah.
It's okay.
Just giving you shit, Rick.
Rick, this is you are our version of the Color Man.
Yes.
You know, add color.
I'm the Bob Newhart of this show.
That's
the thing. If it was just Chris and me, it would get real old real fast. This is the interesting part, just getting together and just kind of talking about stuff.
Well, and we don't operate like solely in an IT bubble. Like there are other things that come up that we talk about. Like obviously current events sometimes play into what's going on. Hence I've never lost access to my ticketing system for an hour since we implemented and started using it. So I think that's pretty good. Yes, it was disappointing that it was down, but I mean for 5 years, I mean that's pretty good for not losing cloud access.
And that's an interesting data point. I mean, all of us have been affected by AWS and GCP and Azure outages, especially Azure outages over the last 3, 4, 5 years. You guys have been relatively lucky where you have important business apps that are only cloud hosted. And this is the first time you've had an interruption. And it was an hour. That's
It was about an hour. It was
bad.
kind of up and down. The reason we have Cloud App is we have multiple locations and we have mobile users. So, I mean, I don't know any other way that would work.
It makes a ton of sense. And you take your lumps with Cloud Apps, right? Like, on the plus side, like, let's say the outage wasn't with the Cloud App. Let's say it's with your ISP. If you had your stuff hosted on-prem, none of your mobile users, none of your other locations would be active. With a Cloud App, like, it sucks for that particular location if they're down, but you still get business done.
Routed through to the other location, because we've had ISP outages at one store or the other, which just means the other one is getting all of the stuff that the other one is missing.
Right. Like that's one of the advantages to me of cloud, particularly for small businesses. Like you use that software as a service model. It's powerful. You get to leverage things that otherwise would cost you way more. You know,
I mean, we're still at the time in our growth where free or cheap is good, and if it works and it's free or cheap, it's even better. But I mean, we're growing out of that. Like, it's gonna have to start kind of changing and evolving if we plan on having hopefully another store by the end of this year. I mean, that's the plan.
Well, here's your automation project for you. You you figure out how to automate the stand up of all of your servers and systems in GCP. And then once you've done that, you just continually create new accounts and gather those new credits. That $300 of credits that you get in GCP, which will last you about a month.
We don't even have a server.
Just kidding.
It's on
just
the cloud.
Recycle free accounts forever.
Right. Just recycle those free accounts.
Repoint
the domain.
Like AOL.
Right.
Yeah. AOL, you just have a stack of AOL disks.
Right. Oh, I got my free credits.
Dad, I need you to make a new email address. Thanks.
Go ahead and build that BI SQL server up at GCP and let me know how much that costs you.
Oh yeah, you run through that $300 in about 12 seconds.
Yeah.
Brian, so full disclosure, Brian, Rick, and I have all worked at the same company at the same time.
I
And-
worked there too.
And Catherine did actually.
You
Catherine
called
did-
it work.
Says the antique guy. Um,
And
Yeah.
that could be because you like antiques. It's for other reasons.
Anyway, sorry, Chris. Sorry.
Anyway, just to fill Benno in and anybody else watching, we had a BI server that we migrated to the cloud, and it got assigned a ridiculous level of resources. How many CPUs was in that? vCPU did you dedicate to that? I swear it was like a
Was it
dozen.
32?
It was-
No, it was more than a dozen.
I think it was 16 or 24. I can't remember what they asked for. It's been
enough.
quite a while ago now.
Well, and with SQL licensing, that was like it was high 5 figures a month just to run that server.
Yep.
I seem to remember like was it 60 grand a month when we first spun it
It was
up?
ridiculous. It was. They came over and said, "Shut it
was like,
off." You know.
Wow,
so-
we could buy that we could buy a server with that specs like every 3 months with what, because it was like a couple of T of RAM and like
Yeah, it was.
a shit ton of
And
cores.
then
But it was the SQL licensing for those
Yeah.
cores. That's
we
what
did
killed
the
us.
we did the benchmarking for the SAN, for disk access and all that kind of stuff, and we actually proved that our own SANs, our NetApps, were faster
Well,
than the disk
yeah.
disk access in the cloud. You know, so it
There's
was pretty
three-
fun.
They're 3-4 years old now, and they're still faster.
Those SANs,
Yeah.
they're more than that. They're 6 years old by now.
Yeah, maybe.
There's the
Yep,
ones
I put,
that we
I
got.
put those things in there. I know how old they are.
You did.
Well, we have the ones that we bought right before you left, and they hadn't put in service yet.
Yeah. The all flash ones.
Oh, okay, my bad. All right,
Hmm.
because I remember we
Yeah.
did put that all flash cluster in there about a year before I left.
That
The
could be
fast 4080,
80-40.
84,
80/40s,
84. Yeah,
Yep,
yeah. I mean, nice sand, but
that's what I'm buying now. I just wrote another PO to buy another one for us. So
nice. Yeah,
So,
good
Benno,
job.
In your MSP days, how much exposure did you have to like big iron like NetApps and Palo Altos and that kind of thing? Like I know in my MSP days it was like, well, what does Dell have on discount this week?
So honestly, I'm less of a networking guy. Like you guys aptly pointed out, looking at that IT discovery checklist, you guys were like, yeah, clearly this guy's a systems guy and not a networking guy. Otherwise, he'd have a bunch of networking questions on there that I could think of right now. So yeah, less of a networking guy, more of a systems guy, and I guess in terms of networking, like I've worked with a few of the big brands, like Cisco, ASA firewalls, Fortinet, SonicWall. That was a major thing in our shop.
Yeah, they're big in MSPs.
There.
Yep.
The price point's great.
Yep. And then personally at home, I love Ubiquity stuff. I run an edge router at home. Fantastic piece of kit.
Cool. I know Rick and Brian are both running Palo at home,
Yeah.
and I'm running a fabulous piece of consumer grade hardware from Firewalla. Because I'm
Hey.
kind of a Luddite, and I also like try to keep it so that my spouse, who is not in IT, has a shot at managing it if like I'm gone or dead in a ditch.
well, you'll get a
Yep.
PA 220 here in another couple of months, dude. So
Mm.
be patient.
And then she will not be able to manage it. Like she's a bright
she won't.
lady, but like
Yeah, that's what I'm here for.
Yep. We get a VPN tunnel built to Brian's place, and you're good to go.
indeed.
You guys don't already
Yeah,
Yeah,
have
that's
one?
what Rick says.
But to all you networking guys, I think for me personally, the biggest feature that I could get from a firewall is basically just reduce the buffer bloat. QoS. Like that
That's
for me solves most of my problems. What's your take on that?
that's gotten better. It used to be horrible. Totally get it. These days, buffers are a more reasonable size, and they're managed much better. Uh, if W2K is still on, he is the QoS. I don't even know what to call him. You still around?
Might be sleeping.
Yeah, he was in the comments earlier.
Yep.
But yeah, it's just effective management of the queues. It's
No, but
because
I hear what Benno's saying. Like if you're talking, like if you're not talking about Palo Alto gear, right? If you're talking about stuff that you can do on a consumer budget, QoS, like buffer bloat is real.
oh yeah, every ISP thought that was the solution to all of their problems. That's why every cable modem has a buffer way bigger than it ever should be.
Yeah.
Well, that doesn't solve your problems. You need proper queuing. You need appropriately sized queues and buffers. Otherwise, okay, well, your latency shoots up so high that it doesn't even matter. Okay, you have all these packets that are now worthless. Congratulations, you filled your 32 meg buffer or whatever. That's way too big. It doesn't need to be like that.
That's
Oh,
why
yeah,
I
here.
liked my ADSL modem.
I knew he was still on.
I mean, it helps. It helps with Windows updates. What are you talking about?
What?
Hmm.
No, W2K he totally gets it. I mean, especially for conference calls like this, where latency is super important.
Oh yeah,
a
It's all
10
UDP.
meg connection is way better with zero buffer bloat than a 100 meg connection where it's up and down because ISP can't
Seriously,
keep up.
if
My
anything hits the
DSL
buffer,
modem.
it's useless anyways.
Right.
Don't even buffer it.
So full disclosure, for the longest time, I ran on like the second slowest DSL connection that I could get. I think it was like might have been 5 meg down and 1 meg up. Like, but the beauty of that is there was no buffer, no queue. So I had great latency numbers. I couldn't stream. I could stream a movie from Netflix, but none of the other streaming providers.
Well, Netflix will buffer client side, so
Well,
you don't need network buffers.
it'll also downsample to like
Yes,
a quality
excellent
level
at
that will work, right? Like I could have 2 VMs up remotely and like stream a Netflix show, and it was like watching it on a 1980s TV, but it'd stream.
Yeah.
I've got a pipe that is 100 times larger than that now, and I have buffer issues all the time. Anyway.
Yeah, that happens. And that's a problem with any consumer grade connection. And a lot of it's on the CP, but it is also firewall management of those queues is, especially on any residential level gear, it's awful. It's garbage.
Is that just built into like the router modem that like Spectrum or Charter provides?
Yeah. And there's ways to keep that buffer to a minimum, but you need a smarter router or firewall on your side of it to keep that buffer from filling.
Got
So,
it.
yeah, there's ways to manage that intelligently, but it's more difficult because the CPE doesn't play nice. Because it thinks, oh, I've got this giant buffer, I'm going to fill it as much as possible because that makes everyone happy. No, that doesn't make everyone happy.
It like defeats the purpose of having a buffer.
Yeah.
But little plug for Ubiquity or actually PFSense firewalls have this feature too. The FQ Coddle algorithm, which handles QoS. But for anybody in the audience, looking at this, if you go to dslreports.net and just run a test and see what your buffer bloat is, one of those routers could quickly make short work of it and just cut down on all the buffering that your ISP is doing and get latencies down. And even any other bandwidth throttling on any other firewall will kind of achieve the same thing, but just this queuing algorithm just gets that, to Brian's point, gets that right and just dynamically sizes your speed in line with what the ISP can actually transmit on the wire instantly.
Yeah.
DSLreports.com.
Yes,
DSLreports.net will land you on one of those fabulous domain squatting pages.
Nice. I should get that one. Like what?
Right?
How's that still up?
They're probably like, you know what? I'm not paying you $70,000 for a domain when people will try .com.
Oh yeah, it's crazy what they ask for domains that. Oh, here he is. W2K has joined us.
Ooh,
the man, the myth, the legend.
Mr. Buffer Bloat himself has joined.
Hey.
Oh, I'm so glad someone brought that up. It plagues networks to this day. Plagues them.
Yes.
It's impressive to see how behind networks are in terms of buffer bloat. Even bona fide $1 million edge infrastructure plagued by buffer bloat. Absolutely plagued by poor queue management. They use QoS, which doesn't make any sense. Oh man, you got me ranting here. It's good.
Got all riled up and hot in here, huh?
Yeah, it's legit, and even I don't think Palo has like the equivalent of like the Cisco weighted fair queuing, like an algorithm like that. I don't think
I'm not exactly sure what they're using.
I think they use Q. I think it's FIFO until I don't know what they're. I don't think they use queues until you get into QoS, but like the Cisco's weighted fair queuing is like the equivalent of like the latency sensitive like if you do IP address show on any Linux box made in the past 6-8 years, you're going to see fair queue coddle as their queuing algorithm, and latency sensitive is all the rage in any like it's there, you just have to find it. So it's a passion of mine, and that what makes voice, video, and things like this work quite well.
Yes.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah. In my case, I like playing video games as well. So that inner nerd of me just wants to get the kill first.
What do you like to play? What's your game of choice right now?
So right now I'm actually into Escape from Tarkov, which is kind of a hardcore survival shooter kind of. But I play mostly shooter games, and also playing some Star Citizen, which is a little bit more of the sci-fi, spacey type of games.
Sure. I've been a fan of first-person shooters, though. Like my zenith in first-person shooter was Doom, with a keyboard, no mouse for me.
Man, that sounds super rough.
Because I'm old. Yeah, and now that I have kids, like I'm lucky if I can get some time to play a little bit of games on my phone. But so. I know Rick's a Command and Conquer guy.
Oh, I'm old school all the way, buddy.
Oh, nice. Yeah, I guess Red Alert 2 was kind of what got me started into gaming way back when.
Those are fun games. I enjoyed those, and actually I started that series with Tiberian Sun of all things, and somebody had it on a server at a company I was working for. a major beer manufacturer. And they had it up, and we would play during slow periods or whatever. And yeah, it was a good time. And so I went out and bought the games, and I'm still ready to play anybody anytime.
How about you,
Speaking of
Jesse?
that, though, my wife she made a batch of popcorn, and I'm gonna go watch TV.
Enjoy yourself.
Okay.
All
You
right.
mean you're not
It was
going to
good
watch
meet
the
you
rest?
guys. What's that?
I said, you mean you're not going to watch the rest? Just kidding.
Yeah.
No, go enjoy your lovely
I'll pick
wife.
it up later when you get saved to YouTube. There, I'll pick it up.
Enjoy.
Uh,
All right, see you guys later.
Thanks for stopping
Bye,
by.
Rick.
Claire.
See you, Rick.
And there were 5.
And then there were 5. That was Rick. He's a good guy. We were just talking about Benno's gaming habits.
Awesome.
He likes to do shoot 'em ups. The closest that I come to, first person shooter games now is I occasionally will get on and play a little World of Tanks, because I'm awful at it, but watching tanks blow up, near and dear to my heart.
Yeah. Unreal
there's
Tournament
also-
Game of the Year edition.
2002, baby.
Yep.
Yeah, but Chris, you might also like World of Warships, also free to play. Very similar
I've
vibe.
seen it. I've been like, do I? Because like once you go World of Warships, I feel like you've embraced like full geek. Because like, what do you do for fun? Oh, I drive around a virtual battleship and blow up other virtual battleships. Like, yeah, I did that when I was 4 with 2 pegboards and like, yeah. Now at least I can amuse myself with like, no, World of Tanks. It's kind of like playing a historical game, right? Like, was the
Everyone
Panzer
has
really better? Yeah.
You have an inner child you need to feed. You got to let him out.
Right. Right.
Can I
And-
talk about something that had to do with the checklist that I thought we were going to kind of
please
like
do.
talk about later?
Yes, please.
But
Sorry, didn't mean to drag you all back in.
No,
No,
that's
talking
after the 1 hour mark, we usually go off the rails. But if you can bring us back in, it's fine.
So we were talking about like how important it is to ask stuff, even if we don't necessarily know if it's going to directly affect us, if this is something that we're going to be managing. Because, I mean, honestly, as an MSP, it doesn't mean that you have your fingers in everything. There are some things that maybe like, oh, we've got people that work for an insurance company and like all of their software is managed by a central point. So I take care of everything, but not their insurance management. So do I really need to know passwords about that particular software? Probably not.
No, but you might need to know that it exists and what those workflows look like in case something happens where it impacts that.
So
You
do
may
you-
be asked to troubleshoot your side of that.
So do you remember, because when I get really stumped, like I text Brian while I'm at work. I know better than to ask him certain things, because you even say that when it comes to systems, especially the degree that I handle them, that you're a little rusty. You don't really do that stuff anymore.
Yeah.
But I remember, so I typically mostly just handle retail customers and fixing their computers. But sometimes when there's overflow of business work where there's nobody else available, like any of our business technicians, and it's relatively simple, it will come to me. So our senior business technician threw something at me about someone not being able to get access to their email. And maybe this is ringing a bell now, Brian.
Oh, yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about.
So it was like, oh, this person is having trouble with email. You probably have to, I don't even remember what she suggested that I do. But what it turns out, because this was a relatively new customer of ours, and no one had asked, is that their domain.
Yeah.
Their
The
domain-
first thing I did was I checked to see when their domain would expire.
And their domain expired.
Yeah, it expired the day before. And it was like, oh, well, there's a problem.
So I was like,
There's a
you gave
problem.
me this to like maybe see if I had to update server settings in Outlook. And really what was is that nobody had asked them like, when their domain expired.
Yeah. Well, and it was it was almost an accident because I mean, email problems. I think mail flow. I want to see what the Amex records look like.
Hmm.
And it was like, oh well, everything's wiped out because the domain expired. That's clearly a problem.
So, I mean, that's something that apparently, when you're talking about your email, like, well, who hosts it? And is it your own domain? And is
Who
it a site
registered
like
that and when the
GoDaddy? Like, what are the credentials to
renewal
get
is?
in that? So I can at least find out when all these things expire.
Yeah.
That's bad enough for a large corporation. MSPs taking care of small companies is just exacerbates the problem. That all gets that potato was dropped before you even walked through the door.
Yeah, it was.
So.
It was. But
Which
it was still
that's
like,
why it makes it so much more important to collect that information.
Yeah, the checklist.
mhm.
Yes, the
Right.
checklist. It all goes back to the checklist.
Well,
yeah,
just being
even if-
methodical, right, in your questioning.
Yeah.
Yes.
Right. Like, hey, what domains do you own? Awesome. When does the registration expire? Great. Do you have certificates for it? Cool. When do those expire? Right? Like, man, the number of times you've hit something that's like, oh yeah, certificate expired.
Some people, some customers of ours are really good, and they just have a folder of anyone that's ever done any IT stuff, every password, literally a note every time someone's come in and done service. And then you, as a new MSP, like, they just hand you this folder, and you're like, holy cow, like, I know everything that I could
I love you.
Yeah, that's one of our municipalities. Thank goodness.
Oh,
But there's some people that have no idea about any of it, and they cannot be bothered to know any of it either.
That's why they
Oh.
say we have an MSP.
Hmm.
And unfortunately, that's like the sad, dark part of MSPs. They're just this whipping boy of.
Yeah.
I mean,
I
the
mean-
good news about that is there isn't a lot of people that do the size businesses that we do. So I feel like unless you were completely turned off by how we run business, like, there isn't anyone else that's going to do this, except maybe a dude that runs IT out of his house second shift after his full-time job in his mom's basement. Like, that's really what's kind of left.
yeah.
Right.
So, G-Shack 3 brings up an excellent point, and I've seen this several times. I don't know if you've ran into this, Catherine. Does the web designer have the creds? Time to change them.
Yes.
Oh yeah. Or we have a domain, our web designer registered it for us. Yeah, get that transferred to you immediately. Because if you ever fire them, guess what they're taking with them?
Yeah.
All the credentials.
That domain that they got for you.
The domain that is like your existence, right? Like, hey,
Yes.
you thought you had a website. It turns out you were renting it.
Yeah, from them. The same goes for DNS. The same goes for any of the hosting services. I know it seems simple that the web designer is just taking care of all this for us.
Hmm.
No, they can be they can be on your account. You shouldn't be on their account.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's so last time we talked about this, Brian and I talked a little bit on like the ethics of IT, particularly as like a service provider in IT. There are I think the vast majority of us that are providing services in IT take those things seriously and understand like, hey, you're trusting us with things that you don't know how to do, but just out of being a decent human, we're not gonna screw you over. But there are absolutely people out there that either just their mindset or when they're angry about something will totally turn that corner and be like, oh, you're gonna fire me? You can't have your domain.
Yeah.
See ya. Like,
Well, there's that, and then there are the people that literally try to make money off of scamming people about similar issues. And it's tough when when you know that you're legitly trying to help somebody, but they just got their bank account cleaned out by somebody they never met on the internet, and now they're suspicious of me and my intentions in my brick and mortar store on numerous chambers of commerce and other things like that. So like now I'm suspicious.
That's a really good point. And I've like asked people like in the industry. I have never seen it myself, and everyone gives their like 2 weeks when they walk out the door, and a lot of times, especially today, being IT professionals, we have inherent access to a lot more stuff than a
Mm-hmm.
regular employee would have access to.
Mm-hmm.
However, never, not, I can't. I'm trying to think of in my, albeit modest career, I don't think I've ever heard of anybody, even second or third person, where they're holding the company hostage because they have the password vault or
Mm-hmm.
something like that. They've wreaked havoc.
Mm-hmm.
I've never heard of that happen. Albeit, yes, technically it will happen, but usually that you are now an outcast in the industry.
Oh yeah.
And
You would never
anybody that you know.
Right.
I've never
Yeah.
heard of that ever.
There was a guy. He was a network engineer in San Francisco, for the municipality or for the city, or however it worked. Yeah, he got fired, and apparently the way he had all the WAN routers set up is none of them had a saved config. As soon as they rebooted, they were just wiped. This was 12, 15 years ago at least. And
Yes.
that absolutely did not end up well for them or for him. Yeah, he got fired or let go, and they brought him in and wanted the passwords, and he said, "No, you're
Ooh.
not qualified to have these passwords."
I
And
mean, points for comedy. Points for
Well,
comedy.
yes.
They might not be, but that's besides the point.
Well, yeah, they almost definitely weren't. It was like he was like in the mayor's office, and there was like a deputy there and stuff, and they like wanted him to recite the passwords. He
Sounds like
handled it poorly, probably, but I believe he ended up going to jail for a stint and was criminally liable. Not
What are
entirely his own fault.
what
Some
would
of
the
it was the
charges on
stupid.
something like that be?
I don't remember what it was. It was a while back.
that really reeks of government stuff. It's one guy doing everything, and no one
Well,
knows what he's doing.
It was
So-
also a megalomaniac.
that too. Yeah.
He
It ends
was
up being-
definitely not acting
sh-
correctly.
That just makes me worry about some of the municipalities that I'm familiar with that have one person doing everything. Like, you hope that person's not crazy.
That's why that one
You
person.
hope so.
All that stuff should be in the name of the municipality. Nothing should be in a personal account. Nothing should be in that person's. Even if it's like on the domain account, it should be some not service account, but some account that other people can get to, not like Bob at whatever municipality.gov. So
Well,
that when they shut his account off, all of a sudden they can't get anything. I mean, we know how to get around that.
Right. I mean, there's something that I'll
but-
pay that you can put my tax dollars towards. Like, hey, county, go ahead and provide a service to municipalities to go in and just, do a periodic, like, are you doing things right audit for your various municipalities so that taxpayer dollars aren't getting wasted on bullshit.
Oh God.
Well, it's something that happens to a lot of small companies.
Mhm.
There was it a second time now that some sole sysadmin in Texas for the police, like a not insignificant police district, like wiped terabytes of data. Like, I'm pretty sure I saw that on the forums floating around, that some poor soul like deleted
I
in
vaguely remember
Like criminal data?
like in Texas, yeah, like
it was like maybe 2 years ago.
no, more like 2 days ago.
Oh, that I didn't hear about then.
News feeds
Yeah,
are
but
too
there's
filled with other things. Go ahead, Benno.
yeah, I was just gonna say, like, Catherine's point earlier, like it is super important to know like the stuff that you're uh, presumably not responsible for, and just know like what plan is in place for those other systems. And then as far as the ethics go of what goes and what doesn't go, another thing that I think is very commonly used sales tactic is to create stickiness in MSP offerings, which basically means, you know, if you have to unstick it, it's going to rip part of your wall out, right?
Yeah.
Like
Lock
it's going to
in.
damage. Yeah,
Lock
you're
in with
locked
a
in,
pretty name.
locked
Like
in with a pretty name, or mission critical services that are deployed that if that are rented or leased, and if removed, will brick your company. And so, just getting oversight over what is leaving, what is not theirs, is very important when you're taking people on and you still have that going on. And a lot of MSPs also have a policy of, hey, passwords are your property, but documentation isn't. Like, documentation is what we use to do our job better. Passwords is what is required to get things done. So, mileage may vary, but if you're an MSP watching this, keep in mind that it is absolutely in your best interest to be as helpful as you possibly can, because guess what? The grass might not be greener. This other incoming IT company
they might want to
might
come back.
actually suck. It
Yep.
might go bad. And guess who they're going to be calling next if you're super helpful?
burn no
You.
bridges, right?
Yeah.
Like
Yes.
don't burn the bridge. Because yeah, I've seen it. I've seen people come in, and great offering, all kinds of great things said, and sweep the customer off their feet.
Mhm.
And 2-3 months later, that customer's coming back hat in hand, like, "Hey, can you help us out?" If
That
you're a
just
jerk,
actually
not
that
going to
just
happen.
happened to us. We lost one of our longest business customers, so like 20, 25 years, to somebody that was just going to do everything cheaper. And it's coming back around now that that wasn't a good idea. It didn't help that this particular company has turned over a lot of the people that were running it. So it was like, oh, well, wait a minute, like that wasn't good. We should go back to people that had been basically supporting us for the last 20, 25 years. And like we have all of the records of how things were when we left. I don't know what happened in the last year, but at least we know where they were at. And hopefully it's not going to be gross to get that information back out. But this person that replaced us is somebody that did work on the side. So it was like you went from having somebody that could dispatch and help you at any time to, I'll get to it, when I'm done with my real job, but that makes it so much cheaper. And we
Right.
were super salty about it, but we were like, hey, whatever. We'll give this guy all the information that he needs to make sure he's successful and can take care of you. And then we just kind of waited for it to fall apart. And a year later,
Yeah.
it's not.
Just
And yeah,
give
there's
them
no point
give
in
them all
burning
the
any
rope.
bridges. Yeah,
Exactly.
Yeah, there's no point in trying to be petty there. And like Benno had talked about documentation,
Mhm.
I would think that the determining factor there is who paid for that documentation to be done. If the customer paid for the documentation, that should be a deliverable to them. Now, if the MSP ate the time to do that documentation, okay, that could conceivably be there. In fact, no doubt about it. If the MSP ate the time to create that documentation, I would consider that theirs. But how often does that happen? They're gonna bill the customer if they can. There's
Right.
going to be some overlap between just kind of dead admin time where it doesn't really get billed, but it's
Mhm.
just kind of
I mean, even if you're
squishy.
the MSP that like you've done the majority of the documentation not on the customer's dime, right? Like you still have the option at that point to say, "Hey, we did the majority of this documentation
Yes.
on our dime. This would be useful to your new provider, but we need to be made whole in some way for this." Like if a customer's exiting and you offer them a package of documentation that you can verify they didn't pay for, like maybe they're salty about it, but maybe they'll pay you half of what it's worth. Right?
I mean, that's
Yeah.
not a half bad idea. I think even the better one yet is to actually show the customer during quarterly business reviews, look, this is where
Yes.
your documentation's at, because that just shows value, and you'll probably get way more in actual lifetime value of that customer by showing them what you're doing versus charging after the fact and just losing them early because of churn.
Oh,
Right.
absolutely. Documentation is the most underrated thing.
Well, and
Yes.
you come to a customer and show them like, hey, yeah, we've been providing these basic level services, the things you see, keeping your systems up, answering your calls, solving your problems, right? But like in addition to that, we're also doing this. Like, hey, this is something you didn't have before. This is the documentation we got from your previous provider, and this is what you have now. Those kinds of things are that's gonna be remembered.
I'm learning that not all MSPs are created equally, nor do they treat people the same way. We've had a lot of people, and I spoke about this a couple weeks ago. We've been getting a lot of new business clients because their current MSP has decided that they no longer fit their business model and basically are making phone calls and just letting people go.
It turns out you can fire customers.
But you can.
Yes.
It just
But
happens to be a bunch that are all in our general location around the same time.
When it's something
Right.
silly, I mean, there are valid reasons for firing a customer. When it's something silly like, you don't really fit our business model anymore.
Well, and to my knowledge, what that means
That's-
is we were hoping to move on to larger clients and are trying to shake free the little ones at the bottom. Which
That happens a lot. That
It
happens
does.
a lot.
Well,
we don't
I-
really
I-
have a.
I see a lot of MSPs as not having one business model, but all their business model is using the resources from the small fish to benefit the bigger fish they have to then take on even larger fish than that. And it's a perpetual cycle rather than any true model. And if you call that a model, well, fuck me sideways, I guess. So
That's what they're apparently calling and telling all of their clients that they're letting go. You no longer fit our business model, but what it means is you don't make us enough money, and we've got our eyes on bigger fish.
Yeah,
Poor
pretty much
Benno
it.
just had that moment where he's like, I was going to use this for my ad reel. Not anymore.
Sorry.
It's all right. We'll get
No.
you a downloadable version. Benno, you can edit that one out. Just kidding.
Oh no, it's totally okay. No, I was just gonna say that doesn't fit our business model. That can mean so many things, right? At the end of the day, it probably translates to dollars and cents because that's what an MSP is for, really. Like everyone's in it,
you're
not
not
for the purity of IT.
Right. You're not doing it because you really like everybody, right? Like, I
Yeah,
just want to
yeah,
help
no.
people do their
No,
IT.
we don't have bills and leases and rent and other things to pay. Like
Right.
we're just doing this out of the goodness of our hearts.
And honestly, having a good business model as an MSP really does matter. Because if you know like what your segment is, you know what you're delivering, and you also know that these customers have the budget or the mindset, the maturity to actually go along with what you're selling, is quite important, right? If you're pushing cloud services, for example, and this customer wants to stay on-prem, then that they're going to be the first one on the cut list once you get a new customer in that wants to go to the cloud.
True.
And so that could mean all kinds of things. But having a standardized offering and knowing who your customers are, that actually make you money versus the ones that you like or have had forever that just take a ton of work as they don't want to invest, or they're constantly having emergencies and fires here and there. That's quite important. But it just means business is booming in your area, Catherine. Like if people are shaking off the customers they don't want, that just means that there's probably room for another MSP in that area, or for, you could, knowing how to position yourself in the market is also super critical, right?
Well, and from that company standpoint, like it's a boon for you guys, right? Like these people are cutting people loose, and clearly not doing a very good job of it. Like if you're going to do that job right, if you're that MSP that wants to change the way their business works and shake loose certain customer segments, like again, like don't burn any bridges. Find a resource, give them a recommendation, maybe have some like preamble calls with those people, like, hey, we're changing our business model, we'd like to shift some things. Would you be willing to take on some new customers, right? If they're not doing that, they're burning bridges too. And honestly, that kind of behavior, like that doesn't happen by accident. It's present all throughout the organization. Maybe they do well in this boom market, but down the road when they're looking to get some of those loyal customers back, they're not gonna.
It's weird because geographically where we're located, there's people on all sides that are doing this. So it's not like one MSP decided that these people never ever want to do anything like productive and make them money. It's just weird how multiple companies in the area are just like, nope, too small of a company, or we no longer are going to support retail anymore, even if there's licensing and all kinds of stuff tied up, and they basically lock their doors to retail customers. People are literally standing in the parking lot pounding on the door being like, but I need to renew this, and then being like, sorry, we don't help you anymore.
Facebook have that, or Facebook's BGP went haywire and they couldn't authenticate because it was all tied together. They couldn't like get in the door to fix the
like
router.
how are those things connected?
Yeah,
I should get on Facebook even if you guys can't get in the door.
I can see how the ideals of Facebook, it is all tied together, and there is no limitation of that. But clearly, you have seen where there are flaws in that model.
Yeah,
it's hubris, right? If you think that your stuff is that you're that good at what you do, that you don't have to worry about basic concepts like out-of-band networks for certain critical things, segmentation, good checks on certain changes. Like if you think that you're that good, you're waiting.
You're waiting. You're waiting.
Yeah. Benno, do you have anything else you want to add? We're getting towards the end of our period here.
Not particularly. I'd love to hear your guys' take on the checklist, and I'll probably go back and listen to your previous episode and just see what the feedback is.
I'm not sure that I want you to.
No.
Oh man.
The last one we mentioned it, and 2 ago was the first one we mentioned it. The last one was a little rough. We were just kind of stumbling around. It was
just Brian and I, and like we love to chat, but we're not without some other people to give us focus.
We don't have any
direction. Be a little rough. Yeah.
We need sounding boards. We need somebody to bounce stuff off of. We need interaction.
So, I mean, I have a question. Will you keep in touch with us and let us know how things are going with your app development and stuff like that?
I absolutely can. Just drop me an email and I can make it happen. But yeah, it'll we'll see when the next update is on the app projects. But what I'm looking at next is testing my user interface and getting feedback on the general lay of the land and getting people's kind of feet wet with the UI. And then after that, I'll be working on the minimum viable products, the core product that people can actually use, and then find out, does that workflow actually suit their needs, and then we'll mature into a real tool that's really useful, based on that feedback. So yeah, if you're interested in following that, just hit me up, or register as well. That's also a great place.
I'd be curious.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm speaking for my boss, but I'd be curious to know if you need any help with testing, or if we could just try it out and see how it
There's
feels.
a beta sign up.
There's
The
early
link down in
registration,
the
kind of. Yeah.
Okay. Sweet.
Yep.
And beyond that, I mean, if you want any feedback about anything, I mean, we're glad to.
We're a bunch of
We
IT
just like
folks with
talking about IT, and
yeah.
anytime you want to bounce anything off of us, I mean, we may be completely useless, but we know things that don't work.
True.
It's a good start.
True.
Nice. Well, yeah, maybe I'll talk to you guys again. Get on here again after I have something, and
be
you
great.
guys can take a look at it.
Absolutely.
But
real.
yeah, absolutely. Like, and also if you guys have ideas on like what you'd like to see in an onboarding process, that type of thing, maybe that's a good thing to talk about, and I'll see what you guys pounded out there and hammered out.
Absolutely. Well,
but
thank you
yeah, it
so
was
much
great
for coming on. Yeah.
Yeah,
ahead.
thank you guys for having me. I really appreciate it. It was a great time talking.
Thank
We
you very
appreciate
much. I appreciate it.
Thanks.
You have a good night.
Have a good
Thank
night.
you.
Bye.
So yeah, take.
Well, that was Benno.
That was
That was
fun.
good. That was
Yeah.
good. I hope the guy makes $1 million off his thing.
Oh, that would be nice.
At least.
Yeah.
At least.
At least
Like,
$1 million.
I
Yeah.
meant to ask what platforms he was targeting for the app. And is this going to be like an Android thing, or a Windows thing, or an Apple thing?
Apple.
I don't know.
I mean, dirty words, right? But
Well, yeah, I know.
no,
All dirty words.
Or it may be entirely web based. I don't know. I meant to ask that.
You would think
But,
you would be like this, like independent thing. You kind of like plop in, and then you give it access to all that stuff. You give it access to the
Well,
Windows
it
side.
needs the
You get-
integrations to your other backend systems
right.
Yeah.
to be able to do the updates.
Like
make
pull
changes.
in the info. Yeah.
Yes, yes.
I think it would be
So-
nice that it could be available like on a mobile, whether it be Apple or Google, so we could have a tablet when we go out and meet new customers, instead of a bunch of pieces of paper and a bunch of random questions we've asked before that have been mildly successful.
Well, because you're gonna look at those notes 2 hours later and be like, "What the hell was I thinking?"
Well,
Whereas
right,
if you could
those notes only mean anything to the person that wrote them, and unless they're going to
Yes.
digest and unpack all of that for you, they're basically useless.
Right.
Yeah.
And this is honestly, I think this is what he's after, right? Like, he's got a framework for questions, right? But then he's got this system that he wants to build for MSPs so that they have a consistent workflow, so that it's not just up to, well, who did we send out to onboard this person?
Well, this person always forgets to ask this, because
Right.
we have those inconsistencies sometimes. It depends on who goes out and asks these questions, and it's almost how you're asking them, because they're not like questions that you need a paragraph to answer. It should be an IP address or some credentials or a name of a company or something.
Right.
but you have to ask the questions correctly, because they may not know the words that you're asking the question in.
Yes.
You need to ask the question for your audience.
Yep.
Right.
Yep.
But
Not
having a consistent starting
who's
question.
your domain registrar, and when does it expire, and who do you register your SSL certs through?
Do you guys have
it's like-
GoDaddy or anything like GoDaddy? Oh yeah.
do-
Yeah, we got
Oh.
GoDaddy.
Yeah. Do you have a domain name? Like what's your email address? Oh, whatever.com. Oh, who actually owns that? Those are important questions. And with a IT kind of question, they may not know what you're asking.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yeah.
You
And
need
that's
to
why
dig a little
you
bit.
can't just slide them this questionnaire across the desk and be
Oh
like,
no, you
fill
wouldn't
this
get
out.
the
I'm gonna
answers you
come back
wanted.
tomorrow and pick it up.
Right. No, it's definitely a
Yeah,
questionnaire
no.
that you have to use on their behalf, right?
You have to use it, and you have to maybe explain it, and you have to break it down, and you have to translate it, really.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, absolutely.
Anyway, it'll be super interesting to see what comes out of it, and I look forward to maybe having him on as he
Oh, yeah.
gets further in the process.
Yeah, same.
Yeah,
I think
definitely.
that the stuff he's doing is super helpful, especially where we're at, as we continually onboard new business customers. There's got to be something more, I guess, maybe like personal user. I'll have to go back over there and look at that, because there's things that I don't think about asking, like grandma, when
Right.
stuff's
No,
clear off.
a lot of those don't apply to them, but
Mhm.
there are
Not at that
things that
scope, right?
might. Yeah.
Well, right, but I mean, there could be like a retail personal user edition
hmm
that could be used for grandma.
Right. Like
Well,
the basic questions. Hey, where are your pictures? How do you get to your pictures? Right.
Yeah.
yeah.
How do you get to your letters?
Mhm.
Do you do accounting on your computer? Like
You
do
do
you keep track of
email.
your personal finances? Where's
Mhm.
your email? Like all of those questions. Y- Um, and some individual users are going to have good answers for those, and some are going to need more prompting. But yeah, I
Mhm.
could totally see room
Bring your
for
password book in. I'll help you fish through it.
absolutely.
Actually, I'm
You,
kind of happy when people have a password book. It makes everything so much easier for me.
you know
Mhm.
what? People used to mock the password book and the written password, but like the security landscape has moved to the point where like it's not your coworker that's the risk really anymore. Like,
Mhm.
yeah, that's still a risk, but like in the grand scheme of things,
Well, I
I'm
still don't want
happy
to
if
come
you're
in.
changing your password,
I don't
right?
want to come in and see all of your passwords posted, noted to your monitor.
Oh God, no.
But um, if you are somebody that doesn't want to save your passwords in Chrome, but you have an up-to-date little book that you keep in your house, great. Just bring it in.
I'd give that a blessing rather than the saved password, because if you save password, by the time you have to change it, you have long forgotten that password.
Mhm.
I
That
mean,
password is gone.
I mean, like
Well,
what Katie's talking about,
two-factor.
not so much the save the password in Chrome, but like letting Chrome do its password management function,
Yeah.
which is actually like apart from anybody who has local access to your computer, Chrome
Mhm.
passwords are like Chrome passwords saved in your profile are uh, stored in a reasonably secure manner now.
Is that pretty? Is that like the equivalent of having just like a password? I honestly have never
So apart from the
clicked.
fact
I
that
have never clicked the save password in any browser ever,
um,
like ever.
it's reasonably good.
Because you
It's the
set a
equivalent of
separate
having a
password
password
for
manager.
encryption.
Yep.
Okay.
I mean, for me, it's really helpful when people save their passwords and keep them updated, because then sometimes I don't have to ask them questions when they're buying a new computer. I can find their password to QuickBooks or their email and then just transfer everything over to a new machine, because sometimes they don't even know what I'm asking. The big problem is when people either don't save anything and don't keep a written record, or they have stuff saved and it's 5 years old, but I don't know that.
Right.
Yeah. Is
Like
the
they checked the
transfer?
box once and yeah.
Yeah. Is the transference from like Chrome, like
So
a normal user Chrome? Like if I were to get a new computer, if I log into my Chrome, like I don't know what
If
they
you
call it,
log
like
into Google and you have it synced to save your passwords because you've been saving them,
yeah.
then you could log into Google and have all of that stuff show up.
All your passwords for my banking, all my
Mhm.
important stuff show up over here. Okay,
Mhm.
that's all right. I'll give it that.
it's
I've never actually used it. I always
it's the
Remember,
equivalent of something like KeyPass.
the scale is
yeah.
convenience or security. I tell people you need to figure out where on that spectrum is comfortable and makes sense for you, because you can do everything really, really securely, but then you don't ever remember anything. You're constantly having to reset stuff, or you've two-factored yourself to death. And then there's not ever changing anything or using the same password for everything for years. Like, you have to just find where it makes sense. And for a retail user, for someone's grandma, like, that's the best way I can explain it. It's not good with your crypto wallets or stuff at work, but
because grandma doesn't know what KeyPass is. Grandma doesn't know what that is stuff is.
no. And if grandma loses her KeyPass password, she's
you're toast, and she's gonna lose it. And I see that as probably the happiest medium where you have this account where things are kind of tied to your reasonable identity. You probably get a two-factor auth. You get the text, you get the call or whatever. Yeah, I would see it as that's good enough for grandma, right?
I mean, let's compare it between like KeyPass and Google's service, right? Like, Google can provide you two-factor auth. The only thing that's different with KeyPass is that KeyPass is putting it behind an additional password, an additional master password, right? Your Google profile also has a master password and two-factor authentication. Is it accessible to anybody that signs onto the computer and pops open your browser that you haven't signed out of? Absolutely.
Sure.
Absolutely.
Well, you should be securing your local computer better than that, though.
Correct.
Yeah.
See, and you know what? Like, I don't necessarily think that matters so much in a home user, especially a home user that lives alone. Whatever.
I can totally imagine convincing grandma to use a YubiKey. They are the simplest thing to use on the planet, because every time you log into a site that has a YubiKey,
you just touch it.
Well, it prompts you insert your secure key, touch the key, right? Like, it's built into the prompting.
Yeah, tell you, my grandma ain't gonna fucking do that, man. There's no way the grandma's not.
90% of my customers won't do that either.
No, it's the setup. Like GS Hack 3 says, use one, easy. Set one up, nope, because it's a different procedure for every different
true
site, every different product. Once you have everything set up, it's super easy. You plug your key in, you hit the button, you're golden.
Yeah, I mean,
it's getting there in the first place, and then not losing the damn thing.
See,
so
that's why I'd rather have someone with a notebook.
Yeah, I mean, what I'll tell you, I've thought a lot about this, because I've thought about recommending YubiKey or some kind of secondary, two-factor auth to other users, because let's face it, if you're using two-factor auth, your odds of getting phished plummet.
Oh yeah, it becomes infinitesimal.
Right. So this is why I'm a huge fan of services like Google, and though I hate to say it, even Facebook, offering basically free access to any vendor that wants to use them for identity. So like, you sign into a ton of websites now, they'll offer you like, create an account or
sign in with Facebook.
Sign in Facebook, right? Like, then you have one two-factor to set up, and like, interestingly enough, the only organizations that aren't letting you do it are the ones you'd want it for, places like banks, right? Like, banks, you're not as good at security as Google is. I'm sorry.
I would.
They're getting better. All of my banking
better,
but so is Google.
I would almost like, so the ideal part of me would say that for me as a professional in the industry, I would never sign in with fucking Facebook. Okay, suck my dick. Okay, I'm not doing that. Not doing that. Sorry. But I understand the appeal to the authentication part of it. But I would also say, in the ideal sense of the word, in the industry, there needs to be, don't sign in with Facebook, don't sign in with Google, don't sign in with even your bank account, sign in with another layer of identity above all of that. I don't know what that looks like, but I can see that happening.
So it's, and this is why I say this.
Yes,
The,
the
other
Facebook
layer
part.
is Facebook or Google, right? Like
I
they're
would
gonna provide
never
the service.
use. I would never use Facebook just because it's too easy. I got a 7-day ban for quoting a movie.
Okay,
Yes.
true. I guess being banned kind of messes some stuff up.
Well,
Yes.
yeah. What if they had? I mean, I'm still on restriction
I love Putin. Like I love
for that same
Russia.
ban. I'm
Russia,
still
yeah.
restricted
What's interesting?
on Facebook.
What's interesting to me, I don't
because
know.
for stupidity.
So
It's like
the interesting thing is, in order to present you with the ban, they have to have completed your authentication, right? I would be curious to know if during a ban, whether or not their SSO, their SAML integrations still work for you. I would bet they do.
they might. I'm more worried about when they decide to. Oh, you've had 3 bans. We're going to shut your account down.
Right, we're going to cancel you. Exactly.
Yeah. Nope.
And
Nope.
That's why I
Nope.
don't trust Facebook.
To be fair,
And their
I don't trust Facebook either.
Yeah, but
their
Google
fact checkers are
Google
decidedly not.
Google's
Google is
like right
slightly-
behind them.
Mm,
Like right behind them. Once everybody abandons Facebook and
they're not going to Google for social media purposes. They're going to
Not anymore. Yeah.
they're going someplace else. Right?
they're going
Like,
someplace else, which means that all that stuff is gonna redistribute itself. I don't know if I trust Google. I don't do that. I just use the native. All my banks use 2-factor auth, strong passwords.
right. But the point that I'm making is, like, if you're grandma, right?
Yeah.
Like asking grandma to set up 2-factor auth for her bank and her credit card company and her pension plan and her email and like all these things, that's a big bucket of water to
Yeah.
carry.
Yeah.
What I would like in the industry is I'd like a reliable vendor that's not going to F you over forever just because
Not
you did.
like Kaspersky or something to make you safer.
Right. Like, you ask for that another layer above that. Like, what is that? If it's not these
I don't know.
gigantic businesses that can afford to do it for free, I'm certainly not asking the government to do it. They will do it horribly.
Oh yeah.
I would almost. We are a long way off from that other layer, and I would just, for grandma, drive to the goddamn bank, okay? Drive to the damn bank, okay? But for anybody under the age of 50, I use independent passwords, 2-factor auth wherever you can, and be done with it. I don't think there's no good solution for it yet. It don't exist.
I want
to hear the answer no one's gonna like.
to. Yep.
Nope. Do we have a?
Pop that one up, Brian.
Yep. Oh,
It's not for
wow.
grandma yet. Oh, the blockchain. Oh my fucking
Oh.
god.
You can do it. I
Wow.
believe it. There you go.
The blockchain. It's the blockchain. Guarantee it.
Yeah, grandma's gonna get lost.
Yes, they are.
Yeah, grandma's gonna get lost in any blockchain stuff.
Yeah. No, you're absolutely right, but at this moment, it's not feasible.
Yeah.
Right. And so
But you're 100% correct. I know you're correct.
So, in the grand scheme of things, you don't have to be the first to market. So Kilt has got a shot, right? But you also don't have to be the best to market. What you have to be really good at is market share. Kilt may come up with an amazing solution, but unless they're excellent at bringing it to market in a way that is accessible for a ton of users, they're never going to unthrone companies like Google, or, as awful as it sounds, Facebook. Because there's a ton of people that are like, Facebook's easy. I've got a Facebook account. If you're a 22-year-old that's still using Facebook, which admittedly there are not a lot of them, or Snapchat, right? Like, you've already got that account. Why aren't you going to make your life easier?
Yeah. Because it's something that has been historically trusted over time.
I mean, the under 30 crowd has trusted Facebook with everything.
Oh,
Yeah.
And just look at the pictures that are out there. Everything. If you're willing to let that out there, you'll totally give away your bank account.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know if it's GS Hack or G Shack,
That's a good question.
all people understand physical keys.
Yes, like
They
the
do.
ones that you open your front door with, or you start your
But like
start your car with. No,
well,
that's not
this-
even totally
like-
true. anymore.
like
there's
some-
a good one, but hold
Yeah,
on.
Titan key, YubiKey.
There.
Isn't that
Yeah.
like the purest form of
Is that a
two-factor
Titan?
auth? It's
Yeah, it's a
something you
Titan.
have
Yeah.
and something you
I
know.
need to replace mine because there's a flaw in the Titan keys.
$30.
But it even looks like a key.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yes.
Because that's the something you have, right?
Yeah, it's something you have. It is an excellent. The flaw, as they also brought up earlier, is the configuration thereof.
Yeah.
That
Amazing.
initial part is it's always different on every different site. The procedure you go through is different. Once you have everything set up, it's real simple. It tells you to plug the damn thing in. You plug it in, you hit the little thing on the side, you're golden.
And they're actually pretty durable.
Nothing could be simpler. Yeah, and they're pretty durable. But it's getting everything set up properly in the first place. And people to understand how important that physical object is.
Yeah.
Mhm.
That physical object is a partial proxy of you. Don't lose it.
Yeah.
If
It's
you
like
do lose it, you better know everywhere that one's set up so you can disable it.
Yeah, it's like your credit card or driver's license, passport. It's like another pillar of that.
Well,
Yeah.
it's just like, so ideally you have two forms, right? Like you have two options for two-factor. There's a primary and a backup. And basically everyone I've ever encountered will allow you to have two active like FIDO keys available. So
Oh, at least. Yeah.
buy two. One goes in a safe place at home. Another one, like put one on your keychain and one in whatever, safety deposit box, firebox, whatever you've got. Bury it in the yard. I don't know. Maybe not bury it in the yard. They're durable. I don't know if they're that durable.
Not that durable. Yeah.
I don't recommend burying anything in your yard.
Well, we're at 2:10. What do you think, guys?
Yeah.
I feel fulfilled by today's episode.
Yeah. We've rambled on long enough, I think.
Mm-hmm.
If Jesse makes it back again, we'll
I see him
wrap
walking.
this up.
I see him walking. There he is.
Oh, there he is. He had to refill.
Yeah, I get a refill.
Yeah, we were just talking about wrapping it up.
Yeah, it's fine. Next week.
Yeah.
Pop that one up, Brian. That last
Yeah.
comment from, I think it's G Shake. That's my.
G Shack or GS Hack?
No,
he said he
I-
doesn't
Hack.
care. It's whatever.
G-Shack?
No,
G-Shack
G
3?
Shack.
G-Shack 3?
It's Leet speak. It's G Shake.
G-Shack. Oh, my lead speak, really? Are we doing that?
Oh
still?
god, this is G Shake. It better not be G Shake.
But we do need a bigger audience.
We do need a bigger audience.
We do. There has to be like a clickbait thing we can like.
Yeah.
We all throw like $20 in the beer
Brian, you don't want to
beer
sell
fun
your soul
thing.
to, advertising.
No. I
I
felt
know-
bad about posting on the MSP Discord.
Why
You know
do
what?
you feel bad?
Like, I don't want to I don't want to shill the channel. It's like if there's people that are interested, I would like to share it with people that are interested.
The way
I don't
that
want
we
to like
get
spam it to people.
the way we
Okay,
get
so he
into
found us on the Reddit
feels
thing and said we're
scammy.
useful and we should talk more.
no. The way we get more interest is we shill it. We post it out there. We're gonna have a beer meetup, right? And then people will always go out for beers. And then when they show up,
Yeah, but that's too
oh,
regional.
no.
Yes,
The
it
only people it starts small. I'm fine with that. The only people that get a free beer out of us are people that have watched the show and have heard the special code.
Oh,
Which
That's
is?
not chilly.
Whatever
I
we're
don't know
gonna.
who
Pod
Oh,
nuts.
it's-
Podnuts
Well-
Pro. I don't know who that is.
Looks like you got some research to do.
All
I
right.
have
I
no
guess.
idea. I know of there's two, maybe three people in the region that would be interested. I don't know if they're as passionate. They're more of 9 to 5 kind of guys, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, well, they're a different breed. That's fine.
Yeah, at least one
Well,
would be
I mean-
interested. At least one I would know would be interested in talking about this stuff. So
I mean, the origin, the whole beginning of this is what do we end up talking about every time we're at the bar and like
Right.
hanging out?
Work
This.
problems.
yes,
Yeah.
And-
So
And looking at each other and like, we should have a YouTube channel. Yeah, we should have a YouTube channel.
yeah,
Like,
and we've been saying that for 3, 4, 5 years.
right. And finally, we did. We're still
Well,
talking about the same stuff. It's fine.
I mean,
Yeah, and
hell, even if it
Have
ends up
exactly
being
the same audience.
even if it being regional people, you know, you can still there's still a lot of value in that.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Well,
Yeah.
if anybody's in the Midwest, especially in
Yeah.
Wisconsin.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I mean, maybe someday we'll be popular enough that people will fly in for a meetup.
Yeah.
Comedy gold.
I would
right
just
there.
be curious. I would just be curious because I mean, me and Brian follow a lot of people on YouTube. Like, how did they get there?
So, well, a thing I've thought about is there's a lot of people on YouTube, like the YouTubes of the world, the Reddits of the world, who are really damn smart. Like, like Chris Greer. I don't know if you ever seen like his YouTube channel. He's the type of guy who would come on this show in a heartbeat. I don't know what time zone he is. He's in the U.S. But
Oh.
he's the type of guy, if you ever watch his YouTube channel, he's the type of guy who would be on this show in a heartbeat. Talking about, he's like a packet guy. And like, I follow him. Yeah, he's really, really good. He's a consultant. He does that type of thing. But he would come on this show, but we would then have to steer the show towards that topic or maybe a series of questions for him to have him educate us on.
I mean, these
stuff.
guys need guidance on topics
I mean,
a lot.
part of the reason we had Benno on is like, it's something that's interesting and
Mhm.
it's a clear topic. And Benno, good guy. Like, glad
Oh, yeah.
he stuck it out as long as he did. Like,
Well, he joined us
Where
from
is he?
Belgium.
Yeah.
He,
What time is it for
yeah,
him?
he's UTC +1 or +2. Yeah, so he's 7 or 8 hours ahead of us.
So it's the middle of the night, basically.
It's the middle of the night for him. Yeah.
Oh, so yeah, I saw him sipping on his coffee. It was like 3:30 in the morning for him.
Oh yeah. It's I'm glad he joined us
Yes.
because he was interesting and added to the show, and it was something that we're interested in.
right.
So
Yeah.
I mean,
I-
it's mutually beneficial.
I think it's stuff like that which will really set it apart. Is
Mhm.
find the people and Chris Greer. There's a guy on I forget his name, but back to the point of buffer bloat, he wrote like or participated in the writing of RFCs to negate that, and he's been fighting that fight for years, and he's the type of guy who, if you reach out to him, he would probably I could probably find his like Reddit username. He would maybe be on board for being on something like
Oh.
this.
Aurora paying for views.
This needs to be
Sorry,
organic. Organic.
Well, that
Organic is tough.
Well, I mean, here's the
I
thing.
want
Yeah,
to
so what?
talk to and interact with people that would benefit from talking and interacting to us. That's
So is
Yeah.
that more important to you than your reach?
I don't give a
Yeah.
shit about what the
Yeah.
reach is. I don't give a shit
Yeah.
if there's 10 views or 10,000 views. If it's 10 people that benefit from the show, I'll take that any day over 10,000 views of people that click into it and are like, what the hell are these retards talking about?
10,000 Chinese bots.
Yeah, no, that And I get it. That's what the game is. But no,
So you don't want to play that game.
Right.
no, I don't care about the game. It's
Okay.
it's stupid to me. This is not build a giant channel and make a bunch of money. This
Well,
is
I mean, we
spend a
wouldn't say
bunch of
no.
money on not having anybody. I mean,
It's pretty much our life goal, right? Like spend a bunch of money on something that nobody's ever going to see.
yeah,
I mean,
exactly,
like,
and that's fine with me as long as the one or two people that see it benefit from it. Mission accomplished.
we also don't want it to evolve into just like the typical bitch fest of
Mhm.
No,
like blah
that
blah blah.
as long as it stays productive.
Right.
But then
I
you can
think
just
there's a
Zoom
lot.
with people once a week and vent.
There's a
There-
there's a place for venting.
Mhm.
Yeah, there's a lot of people out there who are very very smart and who would be just they want to do they're the other side of what you just said. They want to talk to people. They want to talk to people in the industry. They want to talk to professionals about what they see on a day-to-day basis. And I think there's a lot of ground for that. And
Yeah. Oh, I agree completely.
yeah. So there's like one other like I'll message like a guy who who consulted with the company that I was at the time, and he would love to, come on here. I'm sure he'd beat my ass like he always does. So, yeah. But I think like the Chris Greers and the packet pushers of the world.
Well, yeah, that's definitely they're interesting people, and they have something to offer to the same kind of people we want to talk to. Bring us your problems. We may not know the solution, but we can tell you all kinds of ways not to do it.
Yes. Yeah.
Well, we can stop you from stepping on your own dick. Let's put it that way.
That's a start. As long as you don't do the wrong thing, you might just end up doing one of the right
You
things.
might accidentally do one of the many. Everything, there's many right ways and many wrong ways to do it.
Yeah.
We can help steer you away from the wrong ways. We may not be able to tell you the right way to do it, but we'll at least. and most of us have highly tuned bullshit detectors.
Yes.
We can snarfle out the crap and hopefully get people moving in the right direction. So.
All
right, Chris. Now that you're finally back, should we wrap this thing up?
Let's do it.
Oh yeah.
Nope.
I mean, anybody else out there that wants to talk strategy while they buy us drinks?
We'll talk brain surgery if you want to buy us drinks. If you want.
Oh yeah, rocket surgery.
My strategy may decline over the evening, but that doesn't stop me from giving my opinion.
Yeah, but your opinion would get far stronger as the evening goes on.
Right. All right.
Oh.
Well,
All
yep,
right.
let's wrap her up.
Yeah, definitely. We're over the 2-hour mark with change.
Right.
Thank you everyone for joining us. Thank you everyone for watching. Thank you everybody that was actually a participant. Thank you,
Peace.
Benno. Thank you, Aurora.
Mhm.
Aurora Syncroris.
Croy.
JC.
Jace. Oh, I know who Aurora Syncroris.
Yeah, so do I. I know who she is. You better know who she is.
Oh my God. All right. Night's over.
All right. Thank you, everyone. Have a good night.
Bye.
See you in a week. All
Right
right.
on.